morning and thank you for being with us. This is Sunrise and I am Alero Idu.
Happy Valentine's, post-Valentine.
Happy day after Valentine.
Happy Valentine's Day, the morning after. Good morning and welcome. Somebody was saying that Valentine's Day is the beginning of another countdown.
Countdown to?
Some months down the line.
To what? To Christmas?
No. It's the beginning of another countdown in some cases, not in all cases. To the end, to sometime later in the month, in the year.
Be counting.
Just a few months. This is what? This is the second month, sorry. Yes, you were saying?
No, I wasn't saying.
Okay. So what are we talking about this morning?
No, not yet. I was baffled when I read the news item that NNPC imported, or in the month of February, which is only halfway gone, have already imported 200 million liters of PMS. And I'm thinking, but they say Port Harcourt is now working. They say Warri is working. Dangote is on stream. So how come we're still importing so much fuel?
Okay, pick your pen and paper.
Yes, sir.
Let me start educating
Let me take notes. Yes.
So, how much fuel do we consume in a month?
Tell me.
No.
You are the one teaching me, so I'm writing. So.
Long and short, when Dangote refineries came on board, I think what we were made to understand is that 650,000 barrels per day. Ordinarily, we should be getting something significant enough so that we don't have to import anymore. But from information available, even from the same NNPC, information available also says that we're not getting quite that significant, at least not enough to meet local supply, which was why I think that conversation between Dangote and NNPC, say, hey, stop importation of this thing so that we can supply. But then one of the issues that NNPC has raised over time is, look, we are not getting enough supplies from local sources. Now, the Port Harcourt you were talking about, how many liters does it produce in a day?
But they tell us that Dangote produces more than enough for our entire needs.
Who are the day that is telling you that?
We heard that before.
Should. Whether it is or not, that's another thing. Because even right now, Dangote, of course, Dangote doesn't have to, he's not under obligation to sell to you.
True.
It's a
Very
business,
true.
It's a business. And NNPC has a less than 10% stake in it, so it's not a controlling share.
But if he has enough capacity, so much so that he's even exporting, why don't we take all that he can produce?
Can you afford it?
Okay.
One. Secondly,
that's another conversation.
One of the things that we've also been told, when you talked about Port Harcourt, how much fuel can come out of Port Harcourt refinery? I think from what I hear, it's about 60,000 barrels per day or something like that, of crude that it can produce. So really, how much
that it can process.
It can process. So
yes.
How much fuel or petroleum products can that give us? Warri is also on stream. How much can it really cover? The people living around PH, living around Warri, where those products go out, of course, they will get quite some significant supplies. They're not likely to have the kind of challenges many people are having. So yes, we still import because we don't have enough local supply. And if you remember, there was this conversation, I forgot the guy's name. He came here and one of the things that was said, look, every oil-producing country imports crude. And I was surprised. I said, what of Saudi Arabia? He said they also import. Okay. I've not been there, so I don't know.
Okay, all right.
You wanted to? Next item.
Next item. Before we go any further, we must not forget to express our condolences to Nigeria, to the political world, to the Yoruba, what should I say? Race, on the passing of elder statesman Chief Ayo Adebanjo, whom I used to fondly call Daddy. May his soul rest in peace.
And I say amen. And we have to, many of us just have to recognize that he is one of those people who, in the when the Fourth Republic began, he was part of the force that led the most prominent one of the most prominent political parties at the time, the Alliance for Democracy, was one of the leaders, the Afenifere, people.
Yes.
So they did their part to midwife our democracy. So
he will be sorely missed.
And never forgotten.
Yes, indeed. Now, we heard the National Security Advisor use some choice words in referring to Canada in the course of the week. Oh, that's all I'm going to say.
Are you sure they are choice words?
Well, okay, please describe them.
You know, there's something that I've often said, that generally we have a communication challenge. Yes, in the country, generally, in fact, all over the world. That's why, even when you hear someone as prominent as President Trump saying things that people are dispelling and saying it's not true, it's not correct, it's not factual, and all of that, you just wonder, So, and it's all over the world. So sometimes I can't hold brief for Mr. Ribadu, but sometimes in the heat of passion, you say some things. I don't know what it was, that got, him so irked to have used such word, but I think it's just another call. That's the way I'll put it. For us to be more circumspect in our choices. Because most of the time, see, the thing is, and you know this, many times the questions you will be asked, you will not prepare for.
True.
And yes, guess what? You must answer.
Well...
because my colleagues are not going to let you off the hook.
You can say no comment.
No, not anymore.
You can say no
when
comment.
When President Tinubu said, every appointee, you must go to the media and answer a question. I know. You can't say no comment. So sometimes it's in the heat of passion. And then also, let's check, where is who coming from? Whoever is saying what, where are they coming from?
Oh dear.
So anyway, his media men.
But I thought that was embarrassing to Nigeria. And I didn't even think it was his call. That's my personal opinion. I didn't think that it was his call. I mean, I believed it was the call of the Ministry of External Affairs, And have you noticed, we still haven't been told the reason why those visas were denied?
I received a text from someone who lives in he's been our guest on this program before, who lives in Canada and wants to give me some perspective on that. I just received it just before we came on air. So I'm going to read that. Maybe it will give me some perspective. But the truth is really, sometimes some things could just be, I don't want to read any meanings into it until there are facts. And wait a minute, who made us know? Who made the announcement? Okay, if it came from the military themselves, then what really is the agenda? What's the intention? And if that happened indeed, what came before it? There's always this cause and effect kind of thing, called action and reaction. I'm not holding forth for anyone, and just as you said, we need to know what the details are.
Yes, and we need to know the reason.
Because if that's happened to such top high-ranking government officials at the federal level, we shouldn't wonder much why it's happening to ordinary citizens.
Mere mortals. Yes. Now to the menu. We're going to start today by looking at how we're going to finance our 2025 budget, which was passed only 2 days ago or so.
And how much did you pay for your last ATM transaction? Well, we'll talk more about that when we take on the hike in ATM fees.
Those charges now maybe getting to close to inhibitive. And in our lifestyle segment, we're going to be looking at common tech habits to change.
Some people spend their breakfast time and behind the phone and laptop. So the artist of the week.
He's a he.
Any clues other than he's a he?
No.
Be kind. Be generous.
You just have to stay with us up to that point to see who the artist is. And I promise you, you will not regret staying with us.
Well, I think that sounds like he's one of those big boys or big girls. Oh, he's a he.
He's a he.
So.
He may decide to be a she if you know.
I wasn't aware of that one, and I didn't do.
Have you not heard I identify as a cat?
Yes.
I identify as a female.
Did you also see that video? That guy said, I identify as a cat behind the wheel somewhere. I think it was in the US.
Yes.
And the policeman stopped and said, really? Okay. And someone was sitting beside the fellow and recording.
So I'm taking him to the vet. He says, no.
To the doghouse.
See, just
like a good idea, right?
But you got to get the money first.
Where is it coming from?
Oh.
Yes, that's happening.
You got to get it first to be able to spend it on roads.
Government says they have generated an additional 4.5 trillion naira. Yet Nigeria still faces a staggering 16 trillion naira
deficit.
Okay. We have also heard that it means a large portion of the spending will be financed through more borrowing. You know, one of the craziest things that to try to understand for me is economics. I passed it theory WAEC, but that was then.
Me, I passed it at A levels.
But
I still don't understand all this. 16 trillion.
Anyway, there are some people who live and dream it. Two of them are with us here this morning. Olutoyin Ayoade is here with us in the studio. He's managing director and CEO, MBS Securities Nigeria. Thank you for joining us today. NBC Securities, my apologies. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And Charles Iyore also joins us. He is principal partner, Dion and Associates Limited. He is at Darrent and Kent. Thank you for your time this morning, Mr. Iyore.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Alera.
Good morning.
Mr. Ayoade, first of all, it's like what they call a sword right now, beating back and forth. On the one hand, an increased budget means more money for soft and hard infrastructure, more money for capital expenditure, hopefully, and perhaps some other recurrent expenditure. The other end of the knife is, where's it coming from? Your thoughts?
Well, it's a good thing that the budget has been increased compared to what we had last year. Last year, the budget was initially 27.5 trillion, which was eventually increased by the National Assembly to 28.08 trillion. However, with the supplementary budget, the final figure came to 35.05 trillion. Now, what we have this year is 54.99 trillion budget, which is supposed to be a 99% increase compared to what we had last year. However, in real terms, what does it actually mean? Last year, the budget in dollar terms, initial budget in dollar terms, was about $38 billion. Okay? But what we have this year is actually $36.6 billion. So you see that while it has doubled in naira terms, it has actually reduced in dollar terms. So what does this really mean, and how effective is it going to be for the economy? For one thing, capital expenditure has been increased this year, about 24 trillion going to capital expenditure. However, the problem with our budget has always been implementation, execution of the strategy. If you look at the budget last year, the evaluation of the budget, the performance evaluation shows that just 43% of the budget for last year was implemented. And out of that, just 25% of the capital expenditure was implemented last year as well, which has prompted the National Assembly to say, hey, we are going to extend the capital project and expenditure for last year till June 2025 for execution. So in real terms, it's just about the same amount of money that we projected to spend last year. However, you know, in dollar terms, it's actually a bit lower. It's all about the implementation of the budget. If we're able to implement 100% the 24 trillion that we budgeted for capital expenditure, for instance, we're going to make massive massive
one of the
advances.
questions anybody will want to ask you, Mr. Ayade, is have we even analyzed to see, on the one hand, the implementation, on the other hand, the effect? We'll come back to that one. Yeah. Mr. Yore, first of all, let me get your initial thoughts.
On the budget?
Yes, on the whole, the fact that the budget financing for 2025, on the one hand, there's been an increase. On the other hand, where is it going to come from?
Thank you. I'd like to also join you in commiserations to Ayo Dibanjo, a man who never sat on the fence and always took positions, whether you agreed with him or not. May his soul rest in peace. And may more Nigerians continue to say their positions rather than sit on the fence. Now, budget is a very complex issue because it's a development instrument of governments. And the first thing we need to realize is that budgets can fail. And so let's look at budget failing in England. You talk about the mini budget that failed, in which had a lot of crisis, we went into a recession. You ask yourself, is it the actual difficulty of executing the budget that took place, or was it the fault of the initial assumptions? People believe it was the fault of initial assumptions, where you now talk about the ratios of analysis, in the sense that how much money was spent on the aged and infirm, how much money was spent on training the workforce so they are more skilled and they are competitive, and how much money was spent on taking care of children who will replace the workforce. Now, if you don't get that right and you come up with a large figure for your defense budget, it becomes difficult for you to set tax ratios and tax rates. And it begins to tell you that maybe you do not understand the concept of money as impetus for growth. Now, what we see in the budget over time is that each ministry, department, agency has what they call surpluses. We are not a business. Government is not a business. But those surpluses are there, and yet the services are not delivered. And very often, those surpluses are converted to personal use. Now, not only are those surpluses converted to personal use, the financial system does not detect them when they come in. Now, those are the challenges. And until you get those right, the ratios, the first initial ratio, and the other ratios come into play, it will mean that you're on a hiding to nothing, which is why Alero and you are asking, what really is economics? Economics is life and how you apply resources to do it. We must go back to those basic analysis. Again, we must also realize that what is taking place over time and destruction is taking a while. And so those who are trying to make sure they come back to conventional use of tools should be applauded. Well, like I said, they must now remove all of those internal competitions into progressive work and collaborative action. That, I would say, is my overview of what we should look for and how to look for them. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Ayade, let me just ask you something which may sound stupid. We have a deficit of 16 trillion. Last year, I think we had a deficit of, I think it was 13 trillion. Is there any benefit in having a deficit budgeting system?
Well, deficit budgeting means that you are able to get the funds today to execute projects that are long-term projects that would otherwise have taken you more time to get the revenues to implement. So it's not a bad thing in itself.
Okay.
It depends on what the funds that are raised from borrowing sources are used for. If they are used for projects long-term and will benefit the economy, then it's all well and good. However, we also need to think about the effect of more borrowing on the budget as well. Our borrowing is increasing, and you want to, our borrowing is about 40% of of our GDP at the moment. So you want to ask yourself that, when are we going to pay back this? When are we going to pay back this money we are borrowing? And unfortunately, some of the monies we have borrowed have actually been not in our currency, in US dollars, meaning that the more we have a fluctuation in the exchange rate of the naira to the dollar, the more we have a fluctuation in the value of our debt stock as well. So we see that in naira terms, our debt stock has gone up massively compared to last year, when the exchange rate was 750 to a dollar, and this year, when the exchange rate is projected to come down to 1,500 naira to a dollar.
One of the things that I wanted to find out from you the other time is, it's one thing to have good budget implementation. How do we measure impact? I don't think Nigerians have a problem with how much is spent or budgeted or whatever. I think the more problem we have is, where is the money? What's the effect? You know how long,
the people.
Exactly. You know how long it took us, year after year of budgeting for it, to complete the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway rehabilitation. You know how long it took us as a nation to finish the second Niger Bridge. You know how much was budgeted for the Abuja-Kaduna Road, and I don't know how far it has gone right now. So I think the challenge Nigerians would be wondering is, do we even measure impact? On the one hand, you've asked for money last year, we gave you the money. Now you've come back again to ask for money without the National Assembly asking, how did you spend the one of last year? So what's your take on that?
Okay, if you look at it in terms of economic analysis, you have the development economists will look at the Human Development Index and see how this is affected by the amount of money you actually invest in training people, such as education and all that. But you know, investing in infrastructure, like you mentioned, the infrastructures that you mentioned, the roads that you mentioned, actually have a direct impact on the economy. If you have more roads, for instance, it means that travel time is reduced. You have better roads, travel time is reduced. It also means that time wasted is reduced. People have more productive time. People have more productive time to carry out productive activities. Also, you find out that the farmers, for instance, are able to get their products to the market faster as well, meaning that you have a lower percentage of perished goods, you know. And of course, for industries that are in those areas where you have new roads, you see that they are also able to bring their goods to the market very fast, and also they spend less on maintenance of whatever transportation they use to bring their goods to the market. So it actually has a direct effect on the GDP. So what you want to see at the end of the day is the spending of 2025, for instance. What effect does it have on GDP at the end of the year? And of course, through the economic mechanism, you see that the benefits actually spread around, as long as government is consistent in following through these policies of infrastructural development.
Well, I'm sorry, you haven't answered my question quite really. How do we measure impact? Because it doesn't seem like we measure impact. For instance, the Ministry of Power will come and say, we need X amount of money. And the National Assembly is not going, okay, they will come, okay, budget defense and all of those things. And no one asks, the money we gave you, like, you remember in the Obasanjo era of this republic, I don't know the number of turnaround maintenance that we had. And nothing was done.
And nothing turned around.
So, I mean, at least so it would seem to every Nigerian. So one is wondering, you know, electricity is still the way it is. In the last how many weeks? I hear there was another, what's that thing that we always
national
grid collapse.
And then, but it wasn't as noisy because it's almost as if we're not getting
used to it,
thick-skinned to it, and that's not a good thing. So no one is asking the questions of impact to justify getting more or getting anything else this time around.
Yes, so I attempted to answer your question by saying that you look at the GDP growth. So you look at the spending for this year and you look at the GDP growth.
Do the
that is at
ministers
a
or
high
the-
level. That's
Yeah.
at a high level.
Okay.
However, you want to, like you mentioned, power, for instance.
Yeah.
You want to measure what is the increase in power generation and power
Yes.
distribution
Yeah.
within this year,
Yeah.
based on the amount of money spent. So if you want to take it, if you want to put it in silos and look at different sectors of the economy, then you're going to have different parameters to look at to check the performance of each of those sectors of the economy. So for power, for instance, you want to say, hey, we've spent so $1 billion in the last 10 years. How has it moved us forward? What has happened? And why have we not achieved our objectives? Are there leakages? Where are the leakages coming from? These will actually involve extensive analysis to see the actual performance based on the amount spent. In finance, you would look at the payback period, for instance, or the return on a particular investment, if you are looking at it from the finance world. But in economic analysis, you want to see the benefits, the economic value added to this sector, or the economic value generated in this sector as a result of this spending. So you probably have to look at it sector by sector, using different parameters to measure the performance of the sectors.
Mr. Ayade, following from his question, or should I say, broadening his question, every year in the last 20 years, or forever, every year, huge amounts of money have been budgeted for power, and power has not improved by 1 megawatt. Who is checking on that before approving the budget for the next year and the next year and the next year? Because the demands come every year, and we assume that the monies go out, but we do not see any result for it.
Yes. One of the things that we need to realize is that money is budgeted for whatever project, or for whichever sector, includes both maintenance and development of new projects. So you want to look at the number of projects that have been budgeted for development within this period, and you want to look at what is being spent on maintenance. One of the problems that we've had in the past in our budget is that we find out that a very significant part of our budget is spent on recurrent expenditure rather than on capital expenditure. So you need to look at what is spent in this sector as well, and see how much is spent on recurrent expenditure. We spoke earlier about recurrent grid collapses. It's actually expensive bringing it up each time the grid collapses. It's actually some millions of dollars to bring it up.
Miscellaneous expenses.
Yes. So we spend a lot on maintenance, because a lot of the equipment we have as well in these sectors are actually dated.
Obsolete.
They're obsolete. So you spend a lot more to maintain them than the investments we see in new projects. Now talking about the power sector, you see that there are different sections of the power sector. There is a generation, there is a distribution, and there is a transmission in the middle. You see that the generation has been privatized, distribution has been privatized as well. But transmission, government is holding on to that. And you know that whatever business government gets involved in, a lot of inefficiencies come into it. So if we can privatize transmission as well, we'll see more efficiency in that sector.
Okay. Mr. Yore, in tackling the issue of our budget, the issue of inflation also comes in. We're almost at 35% inflation now. How much of that has been factored into the budget? Because inflation has been going up and up in the last year.
Thank you very much, Alero. But I will also, first of all, answer Ayo's question. What is the impact of the budget? Now, one word will answer that. We have an elite perfidy, which are struggling very hard to make sure that our cities, in some form of isomorphic mimicry, try to picture what's in Paris and France and elsewhere. Whereas the countryside which is where all the food and opportunities are still living under medieval conditions. So impact cannot be a measure of what the elites like. So that's the first one. And one of my, I call him my friend, is the Busingye Johnson, who is the Rwandan ambassador to High Commissioner to England, was telling me, Charles, you would keep talking and saying a lot of big words and everything. Every time I go back to the village, people are still climbing trees and plucking mangoes. And that must be that our budgeting has no purpose. Like I told you in the beginning, when I first made introduction, government excesses are called surpluses. They should not be there if the services are not properly entered. And when the surpluses are converted into personal use, you're really only hiding to nothing. Now, when there's too much money in the system, you have inflation, which is why inflation is being like that. Now, when you then anchor the money you put into the system, because money really is supposed to be an impetus for productivity. In those days, they used cowries and Manila to reward people for performing and producing products. What we have done over time is that we do not understand the concept as impetus for production. It has become a mere, bookkeeping analysis. Now, that's the challenge I have. Again, administrative systems have not been used to create wealth. Can anybody please tell me why we cannot produce enough eggs in all of the local governments to take care of our people? A simple challenge. That won't take more than 6 months at the most. And you see how those things properly produced will begin to moderate prices, which will take down inflation. But like I said, we should not sit down and look at it from the perspective of criticism. Is that, like I told you from the very beginning, when the basis, the ratio analysis, and that you use to allocate resources in the budget are not right, no matter how you try to do it, it's never going to be right. England got into trouble and kicked out the prime minister in 45 days. We don't have to kick anybody out now because there's some measure of courage going on, but we have to be certain about what purpose we want to achieve. So that's why there's inflation. Poorly implemented budget, surpluses converted into private use, too much money for the few goods that are not produced. Thank you.
So, but on that same issue, you wanted to quickly respond to that?
No.
Okay. On that same issue, Mr. Yore, recently the president instructed that every minister should go out and start giving their accounts to the people. So if we're having, as you said, poorly implemented budgets, do we hold the ministers? Do we hold the president? What kind of questions do you think Nigerians should be asking? And what are the kind of responses that you think we should be expecting to justify whatever? Because from what we hear from the National Assembly, the 2024 budget is still being implemented.
Well, you should ask questions about the budget to the extent that it affects you. So you're right. And no matter how you do it, whether you're screaming or shouting or carrying placards, that's the way you should react, basically. But what I'm trying to do, because you said, Alero, and you said, you read economics, but it seems that what you're seeing now is voodoo economics, because you cannot link any actions to results. And I'm saying that this did not just start today. I mean, like I said one of time on this project and this session, our linkage to the dollar, as if it is impetus for growth in the economy, is unbelievable. You know, we think that if you see dollar and all of that stuff, that means you are hip, you are special, you know what you're talking about. Rubbish. And like I just told you now, there are 774 local governments. What does it take to use the administrative structure to produce eggs for each of those local governments? Will you think that if that is done properly, we'll be selling a crate of eggs as 10,000 naira?
You know what's funny, Mr. Ayore? I saw a video. I think it was late last year or early this year. I don't know when exactly. Not too long ago. I don't think it's up to a year. Some farmer, poultry farmer, showed in his barn, you know, his storage, that they were having to throw away hundreds of eggs, in fact, thousands of eggs, because they couldn't get anywhere to sell them. And I found that I found that ridiculous. I found it, I don't even know the words to use. And
they had to bury them.
Sir?
They had to bury them.
They had to, you are aware of the story?
They had to bury them.
Okay, so what could have informed that? I mean, taking the example of what Mr. Harris said. Because on the one hand, he's talking about us not producing enough, but here is a situation where they have to...
Well, at that time we had peculiar economic challenges. Purchasing power had been eroded at that time. This was the time when we had shocks to the economy, when oil prices were very low, government revenue was low as well, and the government wasn't paying salaries on time and all that. There was limited money in the system at that time as well. So that was why we had some of those challenges that we had at that time. But you know, we should not get overexcited about the size of the budget that we have for this year, because if you do a comparative analysis with another country, like the US, for instance, which is, of course, a tier 1 country, their budget for 2025, is $5.5 trillion. Our budget is $36.6 billion. On defense, they are spending $900 billion this year. We are spending $4 billion, $4.3 billion or thereabouts. So you see that, well, and they have a population of 340 million people. We have a population of 230 million people. Okay, so if you want to use them as a yardstick and see how much they're supposed to be spending, they were supposed to be spending 10 times.
Why would we use
right
US
now
as a yardstick? I mean, going by what Mr. Ayore said, why should we be benchmarking? In fact, that's one of the issues that I think he's raising. Why should we be benchmarking against the dollar?
Well, we benchmark against the dollar because the entire world does that. Oil that we sell, which brings in 56% of our revenues for this year, is actually priced in US dollars. So if 56% of our budget is determined in US dollars, then we need to continue to reference the US dollar.
But maybe we need to be comparing ourselves to lower countries closer to us, you know, not first tier.
Yes.
Maybe middle tier.
No, but
South Africa, for instance.
Comparing to first tier gives you a very good picture of what is going on. You see,
and it makes
exactly
you feel very large too.
You know that. You know you are very far from
the mark.
Yeah, you know you are very far. You know, you don't want to compare yourself.
Which is discouraging.
Which is discouraging.
Yes.
But I mean, that means that you need to think outside the box as well, and you need to come up with more relevant economic policies that will take your country out of the situation it is in, and in the next 20 years take you to first tier.
I'll go back to what Mr. Ayore
Are we on that road?
We have to come up with policies that will take us on that road. One of the things that I will say about that is that there is, if you look at the global economy, the trend of economic management is shifting from focusing on the income statement of countries to focusing on their balance sheets. Countries are now financializing and securitizing their assets. You saw the other day, Saudi Aramco was able to raise $28 billion by listing, the Saudi government, was able to raise $28 billion just by listing Saudi Aramco on the exchange. We haven't tried to do that in Nigeria. These are some of the things that the government needs to do.
Are we ready for that? Are we primed for that?
To increase liquidity.
Are we primed for that?
We are not, yeah. So to answer that question, we are not on that path yet. We are not on that path yet.
Well, Mr. Ayore, I'll still go back to that issue, of local governments that you raised. And it's a very wonderful way to make the issue, this conversation, really practical. Eggs. I remember speaking to a respected cleric recently, and one of the major questions she asked over and over again is, where do children get eggs to eat? And for a mother to be asking that question, it raised something in my mind. I don't even know if many people are thinking in that direction as well. So, seeing that local government administrations themselves now have some oomph, so to speak, from the federal government through the Supreme Court ruling. And the states themselves always have their own budgets from time to time. Do you think we sometimes focus too much on the federal government and kind of give cut the state government and local government administrations a little too much slack? So we don't, the eyes are not on them, the focus is not on them, the microscope is not on their issues. So we don't even know how to call them, when and how to call them to account to ensure developmental impact of the resources they get.
Well, thank you, Ayo and Valero. I think you guys, both of you, are lecturing us very well now on how to do these things. So I'm really just responding to what you both are saying, because you do the analysis so well. Now, what can I tell you for a second? Let's go back to the eggs and the act to bury the eggs. What it means basically is that we don't have centers of food aggregation. Because if we had proper centers of food aggregation that have central tendencies, and then the fulfillment of contracts take place from there, it's unlikely that you can have this level of waste. Now, there are about 10 centers of central tendency in the country, and those are enough for you to bring to top, aggregate food and distribute them. And the last analysis I did, I think when Nalama was minister, was that there are about 10 of such centers where you can begin to aggregate food and drugs and everything, and then distribute from there. And I can't tell him what I said then. Kano is one. Maiduguri is another. Jos is a third. Kaduna is a fourth. Abuja is a fifth. And when you come down south, clearly Lagos is there. Ibadan is there. Port Harcourt is there. Aba is there. And Onitsha is there. They've already established themselves as centers of aggregation. Already. Because if you want to buy drugs, anything, you go to Port Harcourt or you go to Onitsha. So what we're doing basically is that the administrative structures we have, which can actually create wealth, are not being properly applied. So it's not just about, budget is not just about numbers. It's about ensuring that all the resources that you have are in play. In fact, a certain legislation saying every child deserves an egg every day can significantly increase the amount of eggs that are in production and how they are used. And when you begin these protocols, basic protocols, your influence in the sub-region will automatically expand. It doesn't require 20 years. It doesn't require 5 years. In fact, in my view,
interestingly,
it's 18 months.
Yeah, interestingly, Mr. Yore, it's something we've been talking about in the country. I'm quite passionate about it, and I'm looking forward to how it will be eventually fully executed. There's this special agro-industrial processing zones that the states have signed up to, and the federal government is guaranteeing from the Africa Development Bank. The first phase, we understand, is slowly picking up. The second phase has covered all the states in Nigeria, from what I hear. And I think already the AFDB has mobilized something in the region of almost 2 billion, 2 billion plus or minus, that has been mobilized for that one already. How we go about it, I guess we'll wait to see. Alera has some questions from those who are watching us.
Okay, this is actually a comment. Festus Akimboyewa says, federal government should focus on completing ongoing projects in 2025 and ensure that our SMEs have access to credit and flourish, because they are the engine that drive the economy. Well, they're also the largest job creator. Federal government should also invest in our distressed people and communities in this 2025 budget cycle.
Well, Adeoluojo is also listening to you, and he says, the problem is not with setting up farms in each local government administration, and I think that's responding to you, Mr. Yore, but rather getting honest people to man them. From cleaner to farm manager, every single one will find a way of fleecing the establishment. Yet they will blame government. We need national reorientation to progress. You want to speak to that quickly? Mr. Yore?
Well, you see, this that's why I don't like this armchair commentary from the sidelines. So I'll give you an example of a country that decided it needed to deal with its own food securities. In 1947, America realized it wasn't, the United States of America, two years after the end of the Second World War, realized that it wasn't feeding enough of its people. So with a system of cooperatives, not necessarily funded by government, but by people, government can match it and provide administrative procedures, and something called farm credit. By 1950, America was supplying grains even to its enemy, Russia. So you see, some of these things, because people are so bent on money, they don't understand the concept of money and the attributes. Nobody's telling you that you must get the local government to manage. Why must the local government manage it? Why must there be money in it in the first instance? We're saying basically that eggs are produced, and that even the sale of those eggs does not have to be by cash. You can use other instruments which makes it possible for you to moderate prices.
But I think the issue, I think the issue Adeolu is raising here is, for instance, a Charles Iyore decides to invest in a local government and has a large farm. Of course, Iyore is in Kent, in the UK, and he can't come here himself. So he needs to get as credible a number of people as possible to man those infrastructure, so that he's making the money, providing employment, but at the same time, being able to produce the eggs. But then most of the time, the experience of a number of people is that the people who you engage to do these things, all they want is to fleece the business. And unfortunately, that farm may go under, and Charles Iyore's investment is gone.
But I agree with you what he's saying. All I don't agree with is the fact that Nigerians are otherwise a very corrupt lot. That's not true. Now, let me tell you, if it's important that I tell you that. In all of those places, I didn't talk about just local government. You set up what are called, not merchant acceptances, boards of trade, for example, and they're all cooperatives. The cooperatives themselves is by the money they put together themselves. America is supposed to be a capitalist country. Do you know that they have more cooperatives than even Russia? We people themselves put the act together and create a value chain out of it. If you are in a system in which the resources are applied and the other books are properly defined, the opportunity for those kind of fleecing and theft will not exist. We're wiped out. So what I'm saying basically is that we have not taken time to first of all accept that not every Nigerian is a thief, and not every Nigerian is dishonest, and not every Nigerian is about to run you down, although that's what it indicates right now. What you need to do basically is to ensure that the processes for ensuring that is, for example, they say every bank manager is a thief. So if every bank manager is a thief and you all do everything in Greco, how can you penetrate the bank, bank the unbanked? So some of these questions, in my view, are a bit, I don't want to use any words that are strange.
Okay, well, Mr. Ayode.
I called it earlier on, I said elite perfidy.
Okay. We'll Google that. Mr. Ayode, yeah, you have any comments on that?
Just to corroborate what Mr. Iyore said, a lot of things can actually be achieved within a short period of time if we are dedicated to it. And I'll just give an example of Ghana in the 70s when Jerry Rawlings took over governance in Ghana. Ghana was almost bankrupt at that time. And one of the things he did was to turn Ghana, within a period of 1 year, into a corn exporting country. How did they go about it? They supplied agricultural implements to all the citizens. You want to plant, wherever you want to plant corn, just go and plant corn anywhere. Give them cutlasses and hoes, and give them the seeds to plant. And in 1 year, Ghana had become a net exporter of grains, a net exporter of corn. So a few things, there are some low-hanging fruits that can actually be achieved in the agricultural sector.
Perhaps the issue then will be the motivation, motivation or...
Yes, motivation and execution as well.
Okay. Well, this one is from Pastor Olaoba Cross, and I'll throw it at you. He says, unfortunately, the 2025 budget will majorly come from massive borrowings. and over-taxing Nigerians. The government has made this economy a money-driven economy where there's plenty of money in circulation without value. What's your response to him?
Well, I would say that what the government needs is to focus on the execution of the budget. If the government can actually execute 24 trillion of capital projects like they plan to in 2025, well, we'll see a difference in the economy. The borrowing is something that needs to be managed as well. However, you see that if you go around the world, you see that a lot of countries actually have deficit budgets. Even the US has deficit budgets, and they've been having deficit budgets for years. The most important thing, like I said earlier, is the usage of those funds, basically the execution of the budget to achieve the objectives that the budget was set to achieve.
I asked a question of Mr. Ayore earlier about our focus on what the federal government is doing, and in my opinion, we've only helped the federal government to get so much better at whatever it needs to do, leaving the states in the dust. And so the states also have budgets. Whether or not
and the local governments as well.
Exactly. Well, whether or not they increase their own budgets, they are not. Those issues are not making news as seriously, as quickly, and as strongly as that of the federal government. Are we cutting the states some slack?
Yes, I think that we've been cutting the states and local governments so much slack. I think that now that the local governments actually have their funds being remitted to them by through FAC directly, citizens can hold the local governments accountable for primary health care, for primary education, for the roads within their area that they're supposed to maintain, the roads they're supposed to build and all that. Citizens can take the local government administration responsible for these things. Also note that the local government officials do not have any immunity. So it's easier for you to deal with them than to deal with state governors or the president. Mm-hmm. So citizens need to understand that and start putting pressure on them and say, hey, we need this, you haven't done it. Okay. We need this, you haven't done it.
You've led me to the question that I've been yearning to ask Mr. Ayore earlier. So Mr. Ayore, here is the question. How strongly does politics affect our budgeting, our finances? How much, I don't know if I'm communicating that question well enough. How much do you think politics or politicking affects our economy, affects our spending, influence the things we do as a nation, particularly in terms of developmental economics?
Thank you very much, Ayo. I've been asking this question for a very, very long time. And I've been in many rooms because they see me not as a key politician, although I support political system. And what they always tell me is that politics. When you get the politics right, the economy will follow. But what I've seen in these 50 or so years that I've watched it, well, maybe not that long, is that they fight with tooth and nail to get the keys to the treasury. And nobody thinks about the economics at all. Because if anybody was thinking about the economy, with the energy they use for the politics, we will not be where we are. We will not have large suites of countryside, completely living in medieval conditions, and always trying to show that we live like New York and America. Some measure of isomorphic mimicry, which is a shame. So politics in Nigeria is really our problem because we don't understand the concept of politics. And if you don't understand the concept of politics, it's unlikely you can put together what is seen as economic play. Now, some people in the system are trying to say, listen to me, let's go back to conventional systems of running the system. But one person alone cannot go back to conventional system. And the other ones are still seeing how to convert surpluses into personal gains and how to make sure that they hold as much money that they need to deliver social services so they can convert it at the end of the year into personal gains. And the treasury stands idly by. And politics has taken us a stranglehold. We politic from day one to day two and all through the period when we're supposed to be executing project. That's my view, but who am I? I'm just a bystander. I'm a non-looker.
we have a message here from Professor Enakena, and he says, to ensure the budget delivers tangible benefits, prioritizing key sectors such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, and social welfare is essential. Each of these areas plays a crucial role in fostering an environment where citizens can thrive and investment in them can yield long-term economic benefits.
Professor Sakumboiwa. Okay.
Yes, I agree. I've been talking about the implementation of the budget. It's all about execution. Execute the budget the way it has been presented, and we'll see a difference next year. If the government continues in that trajectory, then over a 4-year period, we should see a lot of progress.
Is that our tradition?
That hasn't been a tradition. Really, because if you look at the budget performance in the past years, you see that performance has been low. Like last year, like I mentioned earlier, was 43%. We need to get to 80-90% implementation of the budget, and then we'll see the effect in the economy. Just to comment on what Mr. Yuri was saying earlier, you were talking about politics. The problem is that we're doing the politics wrong. The politics is not done in the interests of the populace. It is done in the interest of the few politicians. That is the problem. If politicians were accountable at every strata of governance, we won't be where we are today.
Unfortunately, Mr. Ayade.
Yeah, so our problem is that we have taken accountability out of our politics.
But accountability is part of the budgeting process. Here is what I mean. Almost, if not every single ministry, department, or agency has a supervising committee in the National Assembly, be it at the Senate or at the House of Representatives level. So, and they always sit in front, the MDAs sit in front of these committees, almost every time. Okay, how much did you spend? How did you spend this? Or how do you intend to spend this? And all of those things. That's where we had the revelation that dogs at the prisons eat more than the prisoners who are human beings themselves, for instance. So it's not that we don't have the system. Whether or not it works, that's another thing. So what should the National Assembly, for instance, do differently this time if we are to achieve the kind of implementation that you are asking for?
Well, what the National Assembly needs to do is to do their job dispassionately. That's what they need to do. There is a budget. We want to ensure that every MDA actually sticks to the budget, carry out all the projects that are in the budget, and ensure that on a monthly basis they give account of what they have achieved. However, I'm sure you've heard about the exchange of envelopes here and there in the National Assembly. So when the envelopes have been exchanged,
more like Ghana must go.
You can be sure that
too small.
You can be sure you can see a lot of compromise, and that's not what we need. Well, we need accountability all the way through, right from the MDAs to the National Assembly.
It depends on the currency. Whether it's an envelope or Ghana must go depends on the currency. Well, Mr. Yore, I don't know if you want to speak to that as well.
Correct.
The politics of it again, because we really cannot divorce our budgeting from politics, from politicking, because it is politicians in office that are going to vet, whether or not vet who gets what. Do you think they're asking the right questions, or do you think there's too much sentiments of the politicians in the jobs that they have to do?
Well, I'd like to answer the question, but I don't know if I'm in the right position to answer it. And but the bit I would add before getting there is that I saw a program, I think it was in your program or Arise, where the bank said that if the central bank charges them a lot of money and interest rate and all of that stuff, they will just simply pass it on to the customer. Now, I asked Mr. Ayode here, is the capital market a competitive alternative source of capital? So that there's competition, banks don't just do what they like. Because if the capital market is only shadowing the money market and not providing resources that can become competitive, and also to monitor how those transactions are taken into play. They were hiding to nothing. I remember in 2008, I think we were doing international roadshows then. And I said, maybe we should now start doing local roadshows to the local governments. So they understand the meaning of municipal bonds and stuff like that at the level of the local government. I also had a small chat with the governor of the Reserve Bank of South Africa. And I told him straight then that he and me, all of us were educated at the problems of Africa. Because we constantly do everything to manage their city centers, Johannesburg, South Africa, Cairo, and the rest of it. Whereas, just like my friend from Rwanda would say, our countryside are still living under medieval conditions. They don't react because they have some odd beliefs. This is my brother, that's my uncle, I'm in this religion, I'm in that religion. So for me, really, there cannot be a healthy politics from that kind of setting. Mr. Ayade, make the capital market give this banking system competition for financing. Thank you.
Well, I want to answer him.
Yes, the capital market, first of all, is the barometer of the economy. It tells you precisely what is going on in the economy. Secondly, is that the capital market provides a level playing ground for all seekers of funds and investors to make their investment decisions. So if you come to the market and you go through all the rigors of the Securities and Exchange Commission, you get the approval, and you come to the market with a good offering, you will see that you'll be able to raise as much funds as you require. And you would see that both in the equities market and the fixed income market, over the years, a lot of companies have been able to raise copious amounts of money. For instance, year before the last, Dangote Cement was able to raise as much as 300 billion naira. So the government as well, governments have come to the capital markets as well. For instance, Lagos State government issues a bond almost every year, and the bond is usually oversubscribed. Now, why is it that the federal government is able to issue a bond and Lagos State is able to issue a bond, but other state governments are not issuing bonds? There are reasons behind it. Because other state governments are not complying by the regulations of issuing bonds. They are not complying by the discipline. For instance, if you want to issue a bond, you must comply with the PENCOM regulations, in which case you must have been up to date in the payment of your staff contributions to the PFAs that are managing your pensions. So a lot of state governments are lagging behind. So they cannot come to the market and say they want to raise funds. So it speaks to the accountability that we were talking about earlier. The truth is, if you come to the market with a good offering, you can always raise capital, both locally and international markets. Nigeria goes to the international markets to borrow, and we're able to raise, in most cases, more than what we even put out there. Our offerings are usually oversubscribed. So it means that there are funds out there that are looking for investment opportunities. Now, talking about external funds, international funding for projects in Nigeria, one of the things that will be considered is stable exchange rate. Our exchange rate has not been stable. This is one of the things that the monetary authorities, yes, it's possible. Okay. And you see that in the last 1 month or thereabouts, we've seen some stability in the exchange rate between 1550 and 1600 to a dollar. If we can maintain stability, then you see that a lot of foreign funds, foreign investments will come into Nigeria via foreign portfolio investments and foreign direct investments as well. So it's a matter of you being clear about what you want, you abiding by the rules, satisfying all the conditions of issuance of any security that you're bringing to the market. Make a good pitch to the market. Show them that they will get good returns on their investments, and you will see people queuing behind you.
Mr. Ayade, in parentheses, you've spoken about foreign direct investments and stuff like that. But this is the same economy in which we see many of those who are already in running out.
Yes.
And they must have cogent reasons for running out.
Yes.
So if those who want to come in see that people are running out, will they be in a hurry to come in?
Yes, there are a number of factors behind that. Number one is security. Security generally, as a security around the country. Secondly is the security of their investments. If you bring an investment into Nigeria, you expect to make some returns. Can you take out your money? This was a problem that the airlines had over a number of years.
Yes.
And it took CBN a couple of years to resolve the backlog of foreign exchange requests by the airlines. So we need to beef up our USD liquidity as well. We need to beef up our external reserves. And in managing our external reserves, we can learn from countries like Saudi Arabia and China. These countries go to the extreme to manage their external reserves to the extent that they actually borrow sometimes to shore up their external reserves and ensure that they can protect the value of their currency.
Mr. Yori, and I know that Mr. Ayade will also speak to this. If you were to advise or to, I don't know, if you were to speak to Nigerians, because we all know to a large extent the trust quotient is greatly depleted. So if you are to speak to Nigerians, to make an appeal, to speak and offer some kind of confidence to Nigerians, particularly in terms of confidence, trust, so that at least we can have enough support to the people, what would be your word to Nigerians now to support, to at least have some kind of hope in the process? Because over the years, budgets have increased over the years, and they increase in trillions, not just in billions. So governments always ask for trust. What would be your counsel? What would you be telling Nigerians?
Well, I will be telling Nigerians to look into their history. You know that the city hall that you see there, which is perhaps the greatest city hall in anywhere in Nigeria, was funded by issues of securities. Fashion Row was secretary, and a lot of guys did that. Now, how many city halls have you seen built? Maybe Mapo was in a different age that I like city hall, the local government council. What I would say, especially to the capital market, is that the idea that the local governments are now going to have direct allocation opens up a big opportunity for them to look at structures of municipal bonds, to be able to put documents to the National Assembly on how local assets should be created, and whether the local governments can do any deficit financing of their projects or not. And as to how, whether in the primary schools, when we were young, there were school inspectors to make sure that no matter whether it's a private school or a public school, there are basic standards. Because if you haven't got those basic standards, you cannot produce a new workforce. So I'll put it back again to Mr. Ayode. You guys need to get together again in the capital market.
Okay.
Bring back the courage that allowed Abeokuta to borrow money for the water, I think it was in 1903 or 1918. In 5 years, was paid back. So look into your history and ask yourself, why was the Benin Empire the way it was? Why was the Oyo Empire the way it was? Because you understood the concept of money and reward for hard work. They were not even using fiat money. They were using cowries and Manila.
Well, you know, you see now that you are the one that is educating us. But Mr. Ayade, you want to respond in 30 seconds. We are out of time.
Yes, I'll say first of all to Nigerians, I'll say take the local governments accountable, make them accountable for the funds that they receive directly from FAC. And I'll just pick up Mr. Yoren's challenge to us investment bankers. It's part of our job to guide the local governments as well on how to come to the markets. One of the things that we do in NBC Securities Limited is that we actually support public finance. So it's our job as investment bankers, and I'm saying this to all my colleagues as well, that we need to go to the local governments, see how we can help them to get their funding right. If they have projects that they want to bring to the market, we'll be glad to bring it to the market.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
It also goes back to the same question I asked But you said we have to first of all get our politics right. Don't let me start another conversation on that one. You have a response to it?
Yes, not a response, a comment based on what Mr. Yore had said earlier. The problem is not with setting up farms in each local government area, but rather getting honest people to man them. From cleaner to farm manager, every single one will find a way of fleecing the establishment, yet they will blame government. We need national reorientation to progress.
Yes, we just have to take that a second time. Thank you so much for your time here this morning. Olutoyin Ayode is Managing Director and CEO, MBC Securities Limited.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
As well as Mr. Charles Yore, Principal Partner, Dion and Associates Limited from Darren in Kent, UK. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Alero and Aya, for the education.
Okay then, so more education after this break.
This next topic is quite amusing, actually. And it's
there is no money matter that is
hike in it. Oh, this I find this one very amusing.
Really?
Because I don't recall when last I went to an ATM machine to draw money.
Yes.
Because
but you
they never have money.
Oh, they sometimes have money. Come on.
And then they will tell me I can only draw 10,000 naira of my own money.
No.
Why should anybody tell me how much to withdraw of my own money that I gave them to hold for me?
All things are passed away.
Oh,
yes.
All things have become new.
Yeah, all things have become new.
Okay. So the Central Bank of Nigeria has eliminated the 3 monthly withdrawals, 3 free monthly withdrawals previously allowed for customers using other banks' ATMs. So if you bank with Ayo, for instance, and you want to use Alero's ATM, you can use mine free for 3 months. You can use it 3 free times. After that, you start paying me because it is from Ayo's bank that you are drawing money from me.
That was then.
But now, no more freebie.
All things are passed away.
In a circular dated February 10th, 2025, the Apex Bank directed all banks and financial institutions to implement new ATM withdrawal charges from March 1st, 2 weeks from now. This means customers will now pay for every single withdrawal made from another bank's ATM. Everything down hard for Nigeria now. Nobody wants to give you any kind of service for free. That's the long and short of this story. Well, there must be more to it. So we have invited the Acting Director, Financial Policy and Regulation Department, Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. John Simon Onoja, who joins us virtually. Good morning, Mr. Onoja.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. We also have with us a public affairs analyst in the studio with us, Mr. Monday Ashivogu.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Monday, why are you laughing?
Well, the last word is suffering and smiling, so we could also laugh while, okay. At least for now it's free. I'm not paying for laughing or smiling.
Laughing is free. Mr. Onoja, please, can you explain to us the rationale behind this new CBN directive?
Thank you very much, moderator. The Central Bank of Nigeria is a government agency that is mandated to ensure that the stability in the financial system and that every player in the system is playing according to rules.
Okay.
The Central Bank also ensures that operators are not played out of business while also safeguarding the interest of the consumers, in this case, the customers of banks. And like one of your colleagues just said now, it has been a very thorny issue in the past few moments that you go to the ATM or the automated teller machines, and then you don't get the cash that you deserve. Or sometimes, like you said, you get there and discover that you are regulated on how much you can withdraw out of your own money. And that has not been a palatable experience at all. And so the central bank has worked with the financial institutions to ensure that those issues and challenges are becoming the things of the past. And so what we have come out with is a situation where, to start with, you are very sure that each time you get to the machine, you are sure of getting cash out of the machine. That's the first one. We have gotten with the banks the commitment of the banks to ensure that you don't go to the banks, to the ATM, and be told that there's no money. Number two, we have also ensured that when you get to the bank, at least we have set a minimum of 20,000 naira that you can withdraw at your own wish. You may withdraw 5,000 or 3,000 as the case may be, but if you want to withdraw up to 20,000 at a go, you have the access to your cash to withdraw that amount of money. Then the third one is to say that even in remote locations, you will have machines that are there, not on the premises of banks, either your own bank or the other bank that you mentioned just now, but you have access to the machines, even in remote locations. Although what we say there is that is going to attract like a premium charge, but at least it's going to give you an opportunity to have cash at all the time. Then on the side of the banks, deploying machines are quite expensive. They are capital intensive. I wouldn't tell you how much it costs the bank to deploy just one machine. And so we need also encourage them to be able to do at least what we call cost recovery. So it's a balanced circular that came out. While we look at the side of the bank, that at least they should be able to recover their cost, we also want to be sure that the consumer, the customer to the bank, at any point in time, have access to cash.
All right, Mr. Ashibogo, beg your pardon, Doctor.
Oh, excuse me.
You were laughing the other time, but if you look at this, the circular from the CBN, signed, of course, by Mr. Onoja, it begins with, in response to rising costs and the need to improve efficiency of ATM services in the banking industry. Is that, what's your take on that?
Well, I want to say that that's the first genuine answer I've gotten from the Central Bank of Nigeria on this issue. The truth is, across board, every business is actually trying to cope with rising cost. And one of the things you would find is either you would shut down some aspects of the services you render, or there will be some form of deficiency in service delivery, or you may find some form of inefficiency lurking around the corner. Then the issue of trust deficit comes to play. So this rising cost for businesses also affects financial institutions. And I think the CBN, perhaps in their wisdom, have taken that into consideration to ensure that there's cash always available on ATM machines. Some banks have become so notorious that you won't find the cash once it's after closing hours. And we are quite aware that the CBN had to sanction some of the banks recently for that. For us, it's the challenge is, will the banks actually keep to this promise that you, anytime you get to the ATM, you will find the cash that you so deserve. But there's also another concern to this. The CBN also acknowledged that banks can be everywhere. And that was why we had the financial inclusion document and strategy that was developed by the CBN that led to the emergence of fintechs and the deployment of POS terminals all around the country. And today they dot the landscape in millions. And it's expected that they should be able to bridge the gap between what the banks will offer and other service providers. But today, that's not the case. You rarely find cash in most ATM machines. And the banks are alluding to this fact that you have to have a staff that is there 24/7. I recall in the early days of the ATM machines, they deployed as much as 3 to 4 members of staff who were dedicated solely to ensuring that there was always cash on those machines. If the CBN acknowledges that, yes, financial institutions are struggling with cost and also the efficiency of such, and they, in their wisdom, feel that 100 naira will not be a bad idea to take out of someone on each withdrawal.
20,000.
Mind you that it is not this time restricted to charges on other financial institutions that you use. The charge also applies to on the ATM of your own bank as well.
Wait a minute.
Oh, really?
Well, Mr. Onoja, is that correct?
No.
Because you have on us.
No, just
Your circular.
Just a second.
Hold on.
No,
I have a copy of the circular. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. We have a copy of the circular that say on us and not on us. And there's a maximum cap to which that will go up to between 100 to 450 naira to 500. Now, what we are concerned about is if you move to another financial institution, what will compel you to move to another financial institution is the availability of your financial institution around the territory where you want to withdraw your money. Now, there's also going to be what they call the ripple effect. If there's a charge on every 20,000, what it means is that people have this way of reacting without even getting the accurate details of these financials. What you will find is that POS operators will automatically hike their prices.
Of course.
Because the next information you will get is that, oh, CBN has asked banks to charge for cash. And for that reason, we would also add to that. And this was common with this 50 naira stamp duty that this government implemented on fintechs now, saying that, look, anything above 10,000 requires this electronic money transfer levy, which had always been with other financial institutions like the banks. The reaction is always for people to transfer the cost to the consumer. I understand that the central bank wants the banks to remain sustainable and efficient in doing their businesses. But the question now will be, do they have the capacity? Because most of the staffs had been they've let them go because they couldn't manage.
You've raised a number of issues, Dr. Ashibok, but let's get Mr. Onoja to quickly respond to some of them. Go ahead, Mr. Onoja, particularly that first one where he's spoken about the charges of own banks.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that is not what we put out there. To say the least, that's not the accurate information that we put out there. Anytime you withdraw cash from a machine that is owned by your financial institution, you do not pay.
You do not pay immediately, or you do not pay at all?
You don't pay at all.
Because there have been experiences, just a second, sir. There have been experiences where, I mean, you receive...
Can I just end?
Okay, go ahead.
So, again, okay, let me just say this. I was going to say this later, but because it becomes very necessary now, let me say it. If you go to our website, the CBN website, there are a number of frequently asked questions that are there that clarify some of these issues. We have at least up to 20 questions that we think Nigerians are asking, and we provided answers to them for clarity, because all the details cannot be on that 1 and 1/3 page circular. So for every time you withdraw using your card on your bank, you do not pay any charge for withdrawal on ATM. Even if it is the premium one, the premium location we are talking about, where you pay 500 naira, at most 500 naira for withdrawing on a machine that is outside, that is offsite, and the premium location that the bank is not there, your own bank is not there, the other bank is not there, but the ATM is just deployed because people who go to hotels, amusement parks, and superstores, they will need some cash at a point. Those ones you pay premium charge. But as long as it is that machine belongs to your own bank, you do not pay any fee on it.
Okay.
So what you pay
on that, quick question on that, and I hope I'm the only one. If I'm not the only one, I still have two other people here at least who can speak to it. That sometimes at the end of, from time to time, maybe monthly or something, your bank is going to send you a text that say ATM services or card services or stuff like that. Isn't that part of it?
Okay. Now, let me also say that the ATM circular we released is part of a global guide to charges that the central bank has worked on, which is going to come out eventually. So the question you're asking is on card maintenance.
I use the card on ATMs as well. And yes, I bought the card because they collected money from me for using the card, for getting the card. Shouldn't that suffice? Yes, shouldn't that suffice?
So, technically speaking, the cost of the card does not stop at the point you pay for that plastic. Each time you use the card, either on POS or on ATM or on other channels, for that transaction to complete, there are a number of costs that are involved. We talk of the acquirer, we talk of other facilitators, which is not meant for this ATM discussion that we are having. But suffice it to say that what they are charging you is to let you know that each time you use that card, for you to place that card on a device, for the money to leave your account and go to the merchant, or go to the person you want to send it to, or go to any other bank, there are a number of about 3-4 participators are there. And so each of them have costs. And so the banks tell you that a minimum charge, or what they call the maintenance charge, or the usage of that card is charged on either a quarterly basis or a monthly basis.
I wonder why I would buy a card and not use it, but hey, but there's some...
We have engaged them, and we have addressed issues around there. That is going to come out eventually. And I think it's also for the good of the customer.
Okay, well, something... just a second, Alera. Okay, go ahead.
One more thing.
Yeah.
I need us to come to terms with the Central Bank of Nigeria. We are to say, because for whatever reason is given, that the capacity is not there to monitor and to ensure that compliance is made with this regulation, is to come into our own arena and decide for us or speak for us what we can do or what we cannot do. And I don't think that is fair. We have enough capacity within the CBN, and like one of you have just said, in the recent past, banks that have failed to comply, remember, the mantra for this current administration in CBN is compliance. The governor is called Mr. Compliance. And so the financial institutions are aware.
Well, yeah, my apologies. I know that Dr. Ashibogo has a response for you, but before we go to that, because I know that Alera has questions for you as well. There are three columns in your circular. Not on Us has two others. It says on-site ATMs, off-site ATMs, and so help us understand. So that at least those who will bear these costs will know exactly what you're talking about.
Not on Us means you are using a card issued by XYZ Bank on a machine that is provided by ABC Bank.
Go ahead.
So you have to.
Yeah, so when you say on-site ATMs, that's a charge of 100 naira per 20,000. An off-site ATM at a charge of 100 plus a surcharge. Help us understand that.
Okay, so that's number one. The second one is on-site ATMs means you walk into the premises of a bank, a financial institution that is not your own bank, and you use your card on the machine. That is on-site, not on Us. Okay. Meaning, yes, so you are using a card on the site of a bank that is not your financial institution.
Yes.
That's second level. The third level is you are using a machine that is not in the premises of any bank, neither your own nor the other bank, but you are withdrawing from that machine. Meaning you can have a machine in a hotel. There's no bank in that hotel, but a bank can go there and install a machine.
Does that apply to POS as well?
Well, I will beg that we concentrate on this and get it clear, and then probably find time to talk about the POS. Because I want this to get out very clear. You ask for, so can I finish explaining that third level?
Okay, go ahead.
If I expect you to tell me now you are okay with it, then I can stop.
No, go ahead. I want to understand. But I only asked because it's not a bank as well, so just help us understand that better.
So there's a machine that is in Mr. B Hotel, for instance.
Okay.
And that machine is installed by C Hotel. And I have a card that belongs to Z Bank. So I go to a C Bank machine that is not in the premises of the C Bank, but in a remote premise. So number one, the first cost I incur is that I'm going to use my card on the machine that does not belong to my bank. I pay the 100 naira because it's not my bank. Then the second level of cost, which is optional, like we said in the circular, you are now withdrawing on a remote premium location, and that attracts a surcharge of at most 500 naira. But before you press yes, it will display on the screen for you that because this machine is not belonging to your bank, it belongs to another bank, and not even in the premises of that other bank, in a remote premise, are you happy to pay X naira as a surcharge? You must say yes to it before the cash is dispensed to you. So those are the three levels of cost.
Okay. I'm still. What if it's say Onoja International Bank, right? And this ATM is in Ashibogu Hotel, and it wasn't Onoja International Bank that put it there. Help us understand how that works.
You are going into an area in the past where probably we had independent operators installing machines.
But isn't that what you just described?
No. What I described is this machine belongs to Onoja International Bank, in your own words. Okay. I don't have a bank.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Onoja International Bank,
okay.
But it is not in the building, in a branch of Onoja International Bank.
Yes.
Now installed in XY Hotel.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, we have said three things now.
Yes.
It belongs to Onoja International Bank.
Yes.
But it is not in the banking premise of Onoja International Bank.
Yes.
It's in an independent location, which we call a remote location.
Yes.
If, let me try to pick your name.
You mean Dr. Ashibogu, okay?
If Dr. Ashibogu International Bank has a customer that has a card that now goes to use his card on Onoja International Bank machine.
Yes.
Inside Alero Hotel.
Inside Alero Hotel.
Yes.
And he's susceptible to pay the 100 naira because it does not belong to his financial institution, and is optional. If he chooses to withdraw there, he pays at most 500 naira. What
if it is the ATM card of Onoja International Bank in Alero Hotel?
I've said it earlier. As long as the machine belongs to your bank, whether it is in the premises of a fiscal bank that you go,
or a remote. What if it's a remote?
Or in a remote location?
Okay.
You don't pay anything.
Okay, that's better understood. Well, Dr. Ashibogu, you will have some responses.
Well, you said I was being unfair. Let me apologize also in advance for being unfair, but I think we're talking from experience that you said we're encroaching into their turf. I don't have any problem with CBN in terms of compliance. Some of us have seen the results in years where sanctions are applied to erring financial institutions, and some of them pay heavy fines. What we are concerned about is capacity, right? Capacity. Today, some have converted their branches to cash points. Some banks have converted their branches to cash points just to manage cost of running their business. And the first reason the central bank gave for this cost to be added to ATM transactions is rising cost and to improve efficiency. And it's going to start from 1st of March. Will banks do all this recruitment, get all these people to be on and off sites? Now, for off site, I have my own worries, which I would express. We recall when these off-site ATM machines were deployed by financial institutions, and the fraud that happened from people's cards being compromised were largely from off-site. And the same central bank asked most of these financial institutions to take off those off-site machines.
Okay.
Now you are asking them now to go to that off-site location. I am still worried about the capacity of the central bank and the financial institutions to stem the tide of that these fraudulent transactions that happened within that period. We had off-site terminals, all dotting the landscape. I think over time they've restricted it to maybe some very, hotels, maybe 5-star hotels or 4-star hotels, as the case may be. So that would be our worry.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Hibok, do you think, looking at the policy, I know we have some responses to take already. Looking at the policy, what is your take? Do you imagine that there was some significant or sufficient interface between the banks that you are worried may not have significant or sufficient capacity to execute these policies? Because at the end of the day, the CBN is more of a regulator. So do you think, from on the surface of the policy, do you think there was some kind of engagement with the banks before this policy? There was,
and there still is. I'm well aware of that, and I know the CBN is not only engaging with banks alone. It's engaging with all other financial institutions who are involved in this. There are service providers, there are companies that will also provide these ATM machines. There are, of course, companies also who are providing payment solutions for these financial institutions.
So then, if they were part of the process, then they shouldn't have a problem with
I do not have
capacity.
A problem with a policy.
Okay.
I have a problem with implementation.
By the banks,
not with the CBN. And that's why when he said it's unfair,
I know.
See, I have a problem.
Dr. Shivog, I asked that question deliberately because if the banks were in the room, they had that consultation and all of that with the CBN, and they were going to have a challenge. Maybe I should ask, Mr. Onoja. Dr. Ashibogu here admits that, yes, there is significant or sufficient interface between you, the CBN, and the banks. But he's also concerned about capacity. And I'm asking, were there issues raised by the banks to say, okay, we may have a challenge in the area of implementation of this policy because of the challenge of capacity?
Thank you very much for that opportunity. True to what he said, there had been very cordial stakeholder engagement. In fact, we now call it stakeholder management. We had room discussions. We had exposure drafts to them, the relevant stakeholders on this policy. And what turned out is not a surprise to them because they've been part of the discussions and the development of this circular all the way through. And so I would wonder again that I hope again we are not also delving into the arena to begin to take the Panadol for their headache.
Okay.
We have engaged them. They know, they understand what is to be done. They know they need to comply as financial institutions to the circulars of CBN. And I also want to state that could there be any challenge, we are in need together implementing. These are not days where you throw out the policy and you don't monitor the implementation. We are there to monitor the implementation, and if there are reasons to tweak it for more effectiveness, it's not static, it's not cast on stone. It's a dynamic environment we are in today. But before we got to this point, the banks were carried along.
Okay.
We have the body of bank CEOs who sent their representation. In fact, they made a presentation to the Deputy Governor of Financial System Stability. They submitted their memorandum, and we looked at it, and we reviewed it together, and we agreed on some things that should be taken, and we let them understand things that will not be taken, which they agreed with us. And like I said, this is just a small pie of the bigger picture of the guide to bank charges that will be released later. So we've been carrying them along, and I think they will be able to implement.
Okay. Mr. Onoja, let me just play devil's advocate. When the banks announce their profits after tax, the figures are humongous. And I say that in capital letters. So, bringing on these charges are going to make their profits even more humongous. And this is what the common man is going to be thinking. They're already making a lot of money. You want us, okay, they charge us for maintaining our cards. My card is in my pocket. You're maintaining it for me, and you're giving me a charge every month. I send SMS, you send me SMS, you send me 5 SMSs a month, you send me a bill for 20, you almost charge me for even walking into your banking hall. Then you are adding another charge to it when I go to use their card in somebody else's machine. Haba, Mr. Onoja, una won't kill us.
Thank you very much. Without holding forth for the financial institutions, I think people go into business like yours, like Channels Television as well, to make profit. So if the banks are doing business and they are making profit, I'm not very sure it is a crime. And
Mr. Onoja, I'm not saying they should not make profit. I'm not saying they should not make, they should. But when they're making profits that are mind-boggling, and you are encouraging them to even make more, then we, the customers, begin to worry whether you have our interest at heart.
Okay, thank you. Let me just say something a little here. I understand you and I will belong to this society, and we are very responsive to the feelings of customers who we are told they can go to illegal money dealers or those who sell money on the streets, which we run to because there are no cash in the ATM. And then we pay higher. You get 20,000 from the ones that you run to, and you pay higher than 100 naira. And I think the CBN, in a bid to help customers to even pay less for the cash they will use, has brought up this 100 naira charge. I don't think it is higher than what normally people run to other places to buy cash.
Mr. Onoja.
Sorry, I think, okay.
Mr. Onoja, should we even be discussing that? Where do those money vendors get their mint money from? The central bank should look into that and stop that from happening. Currency is not meant to be for sale in public places. That is what the CBN should be looking into, not comparing ATMs to those people.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you know that some people have been convicted for having those cash, and the CBN in the recent, I think one of you, I think you were even the one that said it earlier, that for not complying with the regulation on cash in the machines, the CBN has fined or penalized some financial institutions heavily in the recent past, not even in the long past, just about few months in the past. And so we are doing all that we can to ensure that there's a balanced provision of service. I'm not saying we are encouraging those to sell money. You know, there is a law that even prohibits that. And for those that are caught, CBN has taken many of them to court and even convicted, which you know, it's in the news.
Okay.
And so...
sorry, go ahead.
Can I round off? So
yes.
What I'm trying to round off here is that in all these things, I want us to look at the net benefit to the customer. The net benefit to the customer, who we are saying should be able to have access to cash at any point in time. Not also forgetting that we have also encouraged electronic transactions as much as possible. The payment infrastructure has improved very much, and we are also going towards a cashless environment. where we said, let there be minimum cash to spend. And then the channels are available for you to transact your business in a very seamless way, like what happens in other environments where we also go. So we are not going to revert the wheel to say, let's go back to so much of cash transaction. We know the consequence of it. And so each channels are also available for us to use in the event that we need to transact our business as it should be.
Mr. Onoja, if, according to a report we received, use of ATM dropped from 70% to 40%, are you looking that this, your new policy, will encourage more people to use ATM machines?
Absolutely.
It will?
Yes.
It won't encourage me.
Why don't people use the ATM? Because they go there, they don't find cash. And we are saying that this new circular is going to encourage banks to maintain the old ATMs and even to deploy
because they're making money out of it now. Okay, all right, I get you.
Well, I'm not sure that Dr. Ashibogu agrees with you.
Dr. Ashibogu, you're shaking your head. What do you have to say about that?
I love Mr. Onoja's optimism. And I would be glad that this would happen. You know, he's talked about laws, he's talked about policies in place. And I'll draw one analogy of a land conflict that got to the Supreme Court, and it favored another party. And this is 30 years, nobody has had the courage to enter that land. It's not about just the law. It's not about the policy. You should also you should take into consideration some the nuances. You take into consideration some cultural issues. You take into consideration behavioral patterns that people have cultivated over time. I don't recall, for me, except it's absolutely necessary that it's only the bank that can solve that problem, I don't recall walking into a bank premises. Either I could use the app, or I would walk to a POS person on my street and just ask for the cash. Because why we're saying this is, it's important that it's good for a policy to exist, it's good for a policy to come in place, and yes, it's going to protect the financial institutions from going under, because there's a lot that is coming with the cost. And you've talked about this humongous profit. But the issue is that when you look at these financials, you should also ask for the cash flow. It's one to declare 1 trillion or 10 trillion as profit. It's another to say exactly what's the cash at hand. And so these are the disconnects we're having. And we're looking at this reality. So when you talk about a policy that speaks to reality, it will be fine, because when you create a policy that will create some form of ripple effect and people would move or transition to another place, yes, put the cash and let people go to the ATM machines. Fine, I don't have a problem with that. But it's the same CBN that created the financial inclusion policy that gave birth to these POS machines dotting the landscape.
Well, he has also said already that they have considered some of these things. Well, when you talk about, everyone has been talking about the humongous profits. First, Akinboyewa calls it supernormal profits. But there's a couple of other comments. Says Adeolu Ojo says, honestly, I think Nigerians should do more detailed analysis before holding a position. Compare paying minimum of 200 naira on every 10,000 naira to paying 100 naira on every 20,000 naira and pick the better. At least there are options, he says. So, Festus Akinboyewa also says, instead of driving people to POS operators when they charge high fees, CBN should encourage private businesses to have ATM machines and charge minimum transaction fees. This will allow Nigerians to have more access to their money. Well, I think Mr. Onoja already spoke to the latter. That the former, he says he wants us to talk about it some other time. Well, we will. Guanto Emos Tatium has this one. Says the ATM hike, the hike in ATM fee, the explanation from CBN is not clear at all. Nigeria, my country, everything is shady. But I don't know what you mean by that one. I think it's clear enough now with all the analysis. Well, you sent this about 10 minutes ago. Maybe it was during the time that you were still listening. But Mike Usman is asking you, Mr. Onoja, the reasons we cannot use MasterCard to order goods from abroad through online payments anymore.
Sincerely, I'm personally not aware that you cannot use your card to order the services or goods from abroad. And if you have a challenge with that, my advice is that probably you approach your financial institution that issued the card to you, and it can be resolved. And if it becomes a consumer issue and your financial institution is not listening to you, you have the Consumer Protection Department in the Central Bank of Nigeria to consult. So I don't have that information about MasterCards not being able to activate the procurement of services or goods from abroad.
Well, he's also saying that, as Mike Usman says, at the end, items you should spend 10,000 naira on to buy, when using MasterCard, you will end up spending like 16,000 after converting the money to dollar, and this will affect the cost of selling. It's killing, he says. Would you put that as a part of the vagaries of doing business, Mr. Onoja?
Why I'm saying that is because I use MasterCard and I use it to buy tickets. I use it to do a lot of transactions. I've never been debarred from using my card from transacting the services or procuring services or goods that are not made in Nigeria. So it's again talking about the exchange rate, which is, I think, outside the discourse right now. So if you are buying things in dollars and you are using your Naira card to pay for it, obviously the exchange rate is going to determine how much your account to be debited. So I think the exchange rate issue is beyond this discussion. But I think that is the point. Well,
Festus Akinboyewa, again, he's sitting by his TV set this morning, says when UK banks wanted to charge customers for ATM withdrawals, the regulator stood on the side of customers and blocked it. That's what CBN should be doing, he says. Is that what CBN is doing?
I am aware that in the UK, you go to a supermarket or a superstore to use your card on a machine that is not installed by your financial institution. You pay premium for it. So I don't think there's anything strange with this remote surcharge that we are discussing today.
Okay.
And again, it encourages private investors, which we started before at CBN. We suspended it, but it's a business that other people go into in other countries. You see a machine that is deployed by private investors that are not the financial institutions. And so you go there, it gives you the availability of cash, but you have to pay for it.
All right.
So I don't know what part of the UK that he is speaking from,
okay,
but I know that very well. Yeah?
Okay. Well, Dr. Shibogu, one of the things that anyone would look at this morning concerning this conversation is how it affects micro, small, and medium enterprises. Even though some of the service providers themselves, financial service providers themselves are also SMEs, it will look like at the end of the day, this policy has a way of swinging back and forth, on the concerning the impact on businesses.
Okay, let me just use it as a joke, If the dollar goes up, the woman selling plantain, you want to buy plantain, she hikes her price, she says dollar has gone up. And plantain and palm oil have no business with the dollar at that moment. But everybody will just tell you the dollar has gone up. So once this happens, the next thing they tell you, bank has increased their charge for cash. And the truth is that if you look at the average, because some of these policies come as a function of research, most people who you find in the long queues on POS machines, ATM machines, most of them don't do more than 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. That was what led to the emergence of the over-the-counter 150,000, and then other channels. You have to use other electronic channels, because we found that those who were coming more often over the counter to do withdrawal of cash were doing less than 150,000, and so they could push them to the ATM machines to pull out cash with their cards. But interestingly, everybody will claim now that he is withdrawing 1 million naira. 1 billion naira, So that's why I said we should also take into consideration the nuances. Once you just say 100 naira has been added, everybody just believes, oh, it's 100 naira, I should add 200 naira to my fee immediately. So that's what I'm saying. It's not about...
He says he doesn't want us to discuss that one.
Yeah, but you will see the percentage of persons,
okay,
the percentage of persons who will even do 20,000 naira at a go are not as many as we think they are. The truth is that if the cash is available on the machines, and people come there, frequency is 5,000, 3,000, 4,000, 10,000.
Depending on the location in the country.
Every 200 withdrawals.
Can I just clarify something quickly, please?
Go ahead, please.
I think this discussion is going on as if everybody that goes to withdraw cash from ATM pays 100 naira, which is not true.
Yeah.
We are only saying that if you withdraw on a bank ATM that is not yours,
yes,
so a greater percentage who will want to avoid this cost will go to their bank's ATM and they will have cash. You can even withdraw 1,000 naira and go. You don't pay any naira. You withdraw 20,000 naira without cost. Let this conversation not be as if everybody that goes to ATM to withdraw cash pays 100 naira. That is not correct. So if I keep going to my bank because I want to reduce my cost.
Yes.
The bank branches are there. I chose to operate ABC Bank. And so I also choose to make sure I use the ABC ATM. Even if I withdraw 1 million times in a month, I don't pay anything.
Okay. Mr.
Even
Onoja,
if I find, yes.
Mr. Onoja, so the charge is from 20,000 naira. Is that correct?
No. If you are withdrawing on an ATM that is not yours, even if you are withdrawing 1,000 naira, you pay the 100 naira. But you cannot. What we have said is that, like you said earlier, we have witnessed situations where banks will limit the amount you can withdraw using the ATM of another bank on their own machine.
Okay.
As it is now, you can withdraw up to 20,000, whether you are using the card on your bank's ATM or you are using the card on another bank's ATM.
Okay.
So no bank can restrict you, can let me use the word, refuse you to withdraw 20,000 and below at a go.
Okay, while we are talking about the ATM themselves this morning, Mr. Onoja, and you said now that, you are not even aware that certain cards are not working. In the process of mentioning that, some people have also raised issues about certain cards not working in the country. How are you aware that happens from time to time? That, okay, is this kind of card or is that kind of card is not working for one reason or the other? When those things happen, what could be the reason?
I have said earlier that I use MasterCard and it works for me all the time. So that's why I said I'm not aware that MasterCards have stopped working. Even this week, I use MasterCard and it worked for me. Both on local and international transactions, it works for me.
Okay.
So when the colleague there said MasterCard, that's why I responded that way. That I'm not aware. What I'm trying to say in essence is that MasterCard works and it works for me on international transactions and even local transactions.
Is there a difference between MasterCard and Naira MasterCard, for instance? Because people have different kinds of cards.
Now, going to the cards, again, I know that the card issue is a different discussion altogether.
Yes.
But many times, sometimes when cards don't work, a lot of factors are responsible. Even though I use card that works, I've had situations where my cards fail to work. And I go to my bank and reasons are given. Sometimes it could be infrastructural failure, it could be network failure, it could be anything else. So reasons for failure are varied.
Now, there are times where people want to, say, purchase something in foreign currency, and they're using their domestic account. Like, say, I want to buy anything in whatever currency in the world, and I'm trying to use my Naira card, and for one reason or the other, it doesn't work. Does that also have to do with internet network or some inter-platform challenges?
There are times in this country that for management of forex, there are limits that each financial institution places on daily transactions. on their local card, denominated in dollar or pounds or whatever. There are limits that are placed for transactions on weekly basis or monthly basis. Many times those things apply. But financial institutions will always advise their banks that you can spend $300 equivalent using your Naira card, either on weekly, for instance anyway, using your Naira denominated card, either on weekly or monthly basis. So if you have exceeded your limit, as it were, that is using a Naira denominated card, then you may have a situation where your card may not work for you. So we have had that situation before, and those of us who are in the financial cycle, we understand that, and the banks understand, and even customers are always advised. Then, but if you have your domiciliary account, that is a card that is denominated in dollars or
pounds,
or pounds, for instance, I'm not sure you have any limit to that spending. And so that's why I don't want to go into those complexities, but there exists, which you know that there exists, and banks will always advise you that for now, for reasons of forex and all of that, you can only spend $500 worth of transaction on a monthly basis, and if you exceed your limit, it will just tell you have exceeded your limit for the month or for the week, as the case may be.
Mr. Adebisi Olani says this new CBN policy will allow the POS operators to increase their charges. Please, the policy should be stopped. This is Adebisi Olani.
Let me say something about the POS and the financial inclusion. You know that the Central Bank of Nigeria has been at the forefront of driving financial inclusion in the past years. And we've recorded a lot of successes. We have increased the financial inclusion rate significantly. And even we are also collaborating with the federal government. Just last week, there was a committee that was inaugurated with the central bank governor and the deputy governor of financial system stability as members of strategic committees to also drive further the idea of financial inclusion. And internally, you may be aware too that we have a whole division with a full-fledged staff devoted to the idea of financial inclusion. When we came out with the issue of agency banking, it is to drive financial inclusion. I just know that that is not the subject of discussion, and I wouldn't want to divert our attention to that. But just to suffice it to say that the Central Bank of Nigeria has recorded and has even been giving accolades for driving financial inclusion. Now, we talk about deploying machines on remote locations. To me, I think the Nigerians should also appreciate it that is also part of financial inclusion. A situation where you don't have a bank branch in a location, but yet you can go to a machine and access cash, to give everybody the sense of that accessibility to cash.
That's commendable.
Correct. Thank you very much. At least for once, I got a commendation. Currently, there is a high-level committee working in the governor's office on access to cash. As I speak, I'm not even sure if today, Saturday, they are still not working. So the CBN is actually working on giving Nigerians access to cash and trying to deploy all policies and machineries and even supervision and infrastructure, even committing a lot of budget to this.
Mr. Noja, we've run completely out of time. I'm sorry, we've run completely out of Dr. Ashibogu, your final word on this, please, just before we go.
Well, I think the policy is okay, and let's watch the implementation by March 1st, and let's see if there will be any effect to it. And I think the CBN, in their wisdom, said they will keep rejigging it to make it better. So let's look forward to March 1st when it starts, and let's see how successful it will go. And then if there are issues, I think the CBN has the capacity to deal with it.
Mr. John Simon Onoja, Acting Director of Financial Policy and Regulation Department, Central Bank of Nigeria, who joined us virtually. And we also had Dr. Monday Ashibogu, a public affairs analyst, in the studio with us to look at this all-important hike in ATM fees.
Well, just for your information, both, particularly Mr. Onoja, Festus Akinboewa says my MasterCard and Visa card had never worked in the UK, and Nigeria's retailers had never accepted my UK card to make purchases in Nigeria. Please, you have to pay to come and explain that one on Channels Television. Okay, and so, interestingly, Mr. Onoja has said that we're not talking about cards today.
Well, you'll have to come again, Mr. Onoja, to talk to us about the other cards and why they don't seem to work in Nigeria.
Okay, so we'll take a short break, and I hope you've had a cup of cocoa or cocoa already this morning. If you have not, it's not too late. Hey, so some people have been embarrassed by technology over time.
Not I. Thank you very much. I know you're referring to me.
I said, are you some people?
Yeah, okay. Don't I know?
I think, just I don't have space on my phone again. And my network is not going. Anyway.
Please ignore. Thank you.
Well, interestingly, one of the challenges that happened to tech experts happened to our guest this morning, for which reason he is not able to make it into the studio. But let's get to the issue. Last year, Statista reported that people average 13 plus hours a day using some sort of media, and it's trending upward. We probably know how we got here. Smartphones, texting, social media, binge watching shows, news. There was a time people used YouTube more in the middle of the night for free browsing.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you've got messages and messages, and you spend the first hour just reading those, and by the time you finish, you look at the time.
Someone told me this morning, I won't say who it is, told me that, she woke up, quite early, just to quickly look at one or two messages. You quickly looked at those messages for just 2 hours.
Just 2. Okay. Just 2 hours. Wow.
Before you know what was happening, time goes. So, of course, we can't split our minds into partitions of using media and trying to do something else. So, is there any way out of this trap?
There just has to be. Because, some phones actually help you track how long you spend on your phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it gives it to you, and it tells you at the end of the week, you spent an average of 7 hours every day on your phone. 7 hours out of 24 on your phone?
You won't even know that you are spending the time. That's the thing. Even now, as we're talking, some people, they had issues, using their own technology. Before you know what is happening, you want to get back on it. And, okay, you get on your phone, right? You're traveling. I can't even count the number of accidents people have had using their devices on the road.
When they're driving?
While they are driving, while they are walking. I saw a video.
And bumping into people.
That's even fair. I saw a video in the course of, I think it was this week or last week, of a young lady in India using a phone.
Fell into a gutter?
Fell into a manhole with a baby in hand.
Oh no. These things are addictive, whether you like it or not. These things they are not good for you.
Anyway, so Olaoba Ibitoye joins us this morning. He's a UX tech advisor. That's a user experience tech advisor. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Ibitoye.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, so what are the common tech habits you know that people have that either works or does not work for them?
Okay, you mentioned one which is paramount, and which is time spent on devices. This is a habit we often do on our mobile devices. So if you check your most smartphones now have time trackers that talk about how much time you spend on your device. And subconsciously, you realize if you check that the cumulative amount of time an average person would spend on their device now would range between 8 to 15 hours every day.
Wow.
Now, to be fair, these hours are shared amongst various applications. Now, to each person, it varies. For some people who like to binge watch and what we call doom scrolling on places like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, now, right? To scroll on ending, and you realize, without you knowing. This is a habit we subconsciously picked up, not deliberately. No one wanted to, but somehow we have picked it up. And this is a habit that I can say cuts across board, both professionally and even for the average student.
So the challenge then is, where do we go from here? Because I'm sure you know it, talking from a user experience perspective, these devices are highly addictive. Highly addictive.
Absolutely.
Like as you said, you shuffle between apps. For the business people, there are of course the productivity apps like the WhatsApp and Instagram and stuff like that. For the gamers, it's the game apps, and for the professional, it's either Excel and all of those things. And there are those who would argue that sometimes this is probably what they need to do on their laptops or physically with hard documents and all. So what would you advise? What would be your first take? Because let's first of all speak from the tech part. What are these common habits, and how do we navigate them in a way that is healthy and we still remain productive? Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay, well, Mr. Ibitoye, we can hardly make much sense of what you are saying. This is the kind of user experience we really don't like to have. Maybe you want to log out and log back in. Hopefully, well, Alera has been complaining all day about her own network. I don't want to mention which one.
Honestly.
And I don't want to mention the color of that network either. So if we can just
I
look back
was desperately looking for a piece of information when we were talking about ATM machines. Okay. I wanted to give the exact figure of the profit after tax of a particular bank. And my network suddenly came alive after the segment. And he gave me the figure as 905 billion profit after tax.
Billion what?
Naira.
Naira.
Yes.
Profit after tax in 1 year.
Bidemi.
No, did they put only at the end?
It's always only.
Okay. Just saying.
905 billion naira. And you want them, that same bank now, to be charging 100 naira for withdrawing money from their machine. So by the end of this year, their profit will probably be about 3 trillion.
Oh, you probably don't want to. I mean, one of the things that I got to tell you is that, hey, we make money by, this is one thing area in which we make money. Where there's this, on that same issue, by the way, Atsa Gundu is saying, my concern is that a particular licensee is licensed by CBN and insured by NDIC. Regrettably, some banks' ATM and applications don't allow transaction with this particular service provider. You know, one of those small ones that the moment you make the transfer,
it's gone.
It's gone. The law.
And you take an Uber, for instance, you transfer the money, and even before you step out of the cab, you hear the driver's alert.
That one is.
Thank you, madam.
That one is nice. Before they receive, they have charged you.
Oh, it's
you just say,
it's gone.
It's gone.
Okay, but he hasn't arrived yet.
I now have to wait. Which day was it I was buying fuel? I think it was, today is Saturday. Thursday evening, I bought fuel somewhere. I had to, I had to make a transfer for whatever reason there, whatever didn't go. And then telling me I had to wait. Okay, I waited a few minutes. And I saw that the lady was still busy selling fuel for other people. And I have been debited. I just drove off after about 10 minutes.
And she didn't try to stop you?
She didn't try to. She didn't even.
Well,
she was too busy.
You had shown her that it had left your account.
And I said, wait, I want to continue. Anyway, so I don't know if we have, because, so if you also have, I know people are still reacting to the banking issue, by the way. People are still, in fact, we haven't had this kind of engagement in a while. Money matter is serious matter.
Very serious matter. It's money matter. In fact, one of my cousins sent me a message. Alero, you don't vex.
And this technology thing is another issue like that, because if we are able to master this technology habits that we have from time to time, we might be able to navigate a number of the issues. And I think that's really, for me, that's really
I agree with you. I know that there are many more things I could do and I would be able to do if only I mastered this thing. But already I'm spending about 6-7 hours on it every day. Playing games, mainly. But I'm not achieving. I need to learn how to make money with it.
Well, I would love for you to be able to do that. At least to be the first time, because the grandmas of the future are probably going to be working with these. But the kids of the future, I don't know what they're going to be using.
Well, they'll find something else.
I saw a series recently titled Continuum, about 2 years ago. Titled Continuum. Oh my God. The issue is quite significant. So the tech habits, one of the things that I've seen actually is how we should identify cues, Alero. Let's see how much of that we can do in helping our guests, while we are waiting for our guests, because we can't really do this thing. But technology itself will tell us a thing or two. So let's take a short break, and when we return, hopefully we'll have Mr. Ibitoye back on the program. Well, it seems like we are depending on technology a lot this morning, and our guest today was born to a Christian home and a family of 6 in Lagos. Please welcome, without much ado, Bidemi Olaoba. Of course, we've played his song quite a few times this morning. Good morning and welcome. We're still expecting you in the studio. I know you're on your way here. So again, I say good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored. I'm so happy to be part of the show. Like you said, I'm on my way, and I can't wait to be with you live and direct.
Very, very well. So, how's it been for you? Are you one of those they will call accidental musicians, or you planned to be? Because there are those who studied veterinary medicine. Some of my friends studied veterinary medicine and they are musicians. Some of them microbiologists and they are comedians. Which one is yours?
I would say both. Because I studied engineering and economics in school. Because music is part of me, and it's my talent since I was, a child. So I kind of grew into it. And that's the only thing I have passion for. So even, aside from all the lectures and all the schooling that I did, I would still say, I'm fulfilled, doing music. I would have been happy if I wasn't doing music.
Oh, really? Okay. But if you studied economics and civil engineering, You probably have been doing music with them. I don't know. But anyway, don't answer that one. So tell us how you got into it professionally. I mean, so it's one thing to be interested in something. It's another thing altogether to actually make a life out of it. How did it begin for you?
All right, thank you so much. I mean, from the children choir, you know, in my church, Christ Apostolic Church, it's called Okeyanu, in Agility. Agility is a place at the back of my 12 here in Lagos. I mean, so I started off, you know, in the children choir before I graduated into like the teenagers choir. And before I finally joined RCCG, the Redeemed Christian Church of God, and I became, you know, a part of the family there. I mean, I got the opportunity to minister at the annual, you know, birthday praise organized for the General Overseer of RCCG, Daddy E. Adeboye. And that was about 8 years ago. So I would say my performance at the Marathon Messiah's Praise, the first, you know, opportunity that I have, that platform, was where, you know, the artistry of Bidemi Olaoba, you know, became a thing, or started off, you know, professionally. Although I've been, you know, ministering, I've been singing, but until then, I wouldn't say I started professionally.
That's intriguing. You've also had to work with quite a number of artists, Buchi, Tokwe Alabi, Mike Abdul, Eben, Samuel Koso, and I know that your work with Mike Abdul would, forgive me, will be my favorite for a while, because I mean, I've known that, I don't know what to call him. Some people call him eccentric. Right beside me here is someone who says he has too much energy. You know? Yes, and I think you are also going in that direction. But tell us, what's the signature of Bidemi Olaoba as a musician? What's your identity? What is it that you want to reflect every time people see you on stage?
Okay, so the identity for Bidemi Olaoba is the prophetic utterances that you know, that goes forth during my ministration. By the grace of God, I minister quoting scriptures. The Bible says. So I raise songs in alignment with scriptures that I quote. For example, the Bible says, "Who is he that speaketh, and it cometh to pass when the Lord has not commanded it?" So after quoting that scripture, then I'll sing as led the song that aligns with that particular, you know, phrase, you know, of the scriptures. For example, who they talk waiting God no talk. I know they hear waiting devil talk. So it's a balance of, you know, not just singing, not just dancing, but a perfect balance of the word through music. I, by the grace of God, you know, minister through songs by the word of God. So that I will call my identity. And of course, energetic, you know, the energy on stage, the vibe, you know, I'm a grateful soul. I'm a grateful soul. So I
have to admit, you know, one of the first things that when I hear the Bible says, please, Oga, calm down.
Who is that preacher?
Which one of the preachers?
The one who just said, Bible.
Oga, calm down. Calming down.
Yeah, so Bidemi, just watching your video now, of course, Mike Abdul is also in it, not surprisingly. The both of you are just jumping all over the place, these bundles of energy. Is it some kind of
but you know, that's not what you said, so which is okay. You know, one of the things that I love to see is a balance of artistry and ministry. We'll come to the business end of it. What's been the challenge for you in that space, balancing artistry and ministry? Because to an extent, you can't also take away the fact that there have been musicians who've had an issue of that balance, because fame has a way of getting to you. So how are you able to balance those? Because artistry will give you the fame, or ministry, I don't know. So how have you worked it out?
Thank you so much. Okay, so, I mean, maybe the way God made me, I mean, because this question like come up in, like previous times, and I'm being honest about it. So I think the way God made me, fame doesn't get to me. I don't someone that's famous, so, or someone, I'm just grateful because I don't even know that I'm going to be here. It's just, a step at a time, line upon line, percent upon percent, just the grace of God, and, my consistency with what I do that has brought me thus far, and with the grace of God. So I would say that I don't struggle with balancing, artistry and ministry. So I do everything to align, majorly with this, because the spiritual controls the physical. So I try everything in my capacity, even though sometimes, there are tendencies, as a young man that, may want to shift.
You want to be a young man.
You want to shift your focus and all of that. But, but I keep, the main thing,
Perhaps, can we also attribute some kind of parenting to that? Because, being a musician, okay, first, maybe I should ask you, how did mommy and daddy take it when you said, Mom, I think I want to be carrying microphone and singing?
After studying civil engineering
and economics.
All right. I mean, okay, so my mom is she's a disciplinarian.
Has to be.
She's an author in a church, in our former church, that's the Christ Apostolic Church. So she had instilled the fear of God, in all of us. So she can't be in the church and you are doing something else. She can't be in church. She's the usher. She's the one walking around. You can't be sleeping in church. And the Bible says that train up a child in the way he should go, and when he grows up, he will not depart from it. So, my parents have been able to put us in that path of, of God. So the fear of God is always there. That consciousness of spirituality, of godliness has always been there, and it's always there, and it's still there. So, when I said I was going to do music, my dad was the one that was, a little bit, uncomfortable because he wanted me to be a medical doctor, So even at some point, to me, I wanted to do medicine, but I didn't eventually do medicine. So,
I'm trying to
But my mom was cool.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, but my mom was cool because she has seen me, because my dad didn't live a lot in Nigeria. So we kind of took more with our mom. Yeah, so my mom has seen that growth as a child, even when people will come to her and tell her, this is your child. Your child is a great singer. This boy is going for, she has seen those prophecies. She has witnessed it. So when the results started coming out gradually, so she didn't really stress me. And obviously, because my dad was not around as well, so I had the liberty to.
I'm just trying to imagine Bidemi Olaoba with stethoscope all around his neck, But okay, so one video. Your first time I was seeing a video of you singing an Igbo song was actually this morning, when my producers were, putting the program together. Tell us about that, because it was done on stage.
Okay, thank you. So I believe that, it's about, reach. It's about evangelism. So I don't think that there should be, a restriction to my sound, and to my music. Hence why I put in the work, I challenge myself, I compete with myself within, to do better. My sound of 2025 was not my sound of 2023, was not the same way. And God has shown me mercy. That alone drives me, anywhere for God.
Honestly.
I want to out. I want to just, praise God. I want to raise arm anywhere I have the opportunity. I want to just bless people.
Yeah.
My spirit.
Well, you have to make a promise that you're going to come here again. We want you live in the studio. Can you make that promise now? Anytime soon, within the next 4 weeks? Make that promise now, now.
Yes, okay. I make this promise.
All right, thank you so much for your time this morning. Bidemi Olaoba, Nigerian gospel singer, songwriter, and music composer who loves gospel high life music in Fuji style, whatever that means. You'll tell us the next time you come here. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the best. Of course, we are still expecting you in the studio, no matter what it is.
All right.
Thank you, Bidemi.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can we say that technology rescued us this morning?
Well, did it? Okay. 1-1 goalless draw. We lost one, we gained one.
Okay.
So thank you, technology. But we know that you will always come to our rescue, though. We trust you.
Wait. Is technology watching TV?
Technology is technology is
TV.
Technology is TV. Thank you very much for spending your Saturday morning with us. We are grateful, and we shall be with you again next Saturday with a fresh and interesting edition. I'm Alera Edu, wishing you a very happy weekend and saying, see you next week.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Happy post-Valentine's Day. Have a wonderful